Today we continue on with our NHL season preview series through the Metropolitan Division. Today we're taking a look at the New York Rangers for the upcoming 22-23 season. Can they once again be a powerhouse in the East and contend to maybe compete for the Stanley Cup? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're continuing on with our season previews and looking at the Rangers for the upcoming 22-23 season. Now, in case you're new to this series, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly recap the 21-22 season, take a look at some key team stats, take a look at how they did last year, recent playoff history, see about the coach, GM, kind of where everything sits that way. Then we're going to take a look at how the team has changed over the past season, take a look at any prospects we feel are going to make the jump into the lineup, and then explore the projected lineup and any questions we feel this team faces for the upcoming season. So now let's first recap the 21-22 season for the New York Rangers. Well, of course, last year was a pretty successful year. They were second in the Metro with a record of 52, 24, and 6 for 110 points. They scored 254 goals for 16th best. They only allowed 207, which was awesome. Only second best in the league. Only had one team ahead of them. Power play was amazing, 25.2% for fourth best, and the PK was 82.3 as well. So certainly really strong special teams and really good goals against. Obviously, Igor Shesterkin was a big part of that, and this team certainly had a phenomenal year. Of course, they made the playoffs, ended up going all the way to the Eastern Conference Final. They ended up having a real solid year, probably a little bit of ahead of schedule after coming out of a rebuild. I think a lot of people might have thought, they could compete for playoffs last year. I don't know how many people actually predicted they would go all that far and be that close to a Stanley Cup. Now, of course, before that, they missed the 4 previous seasons as they kind of tore things down and rebuilt this team. The last time they won a playoff series was in 2017. Of course, that year they lost in the second round. Of course, Gerard Gallant was in his first NHL season with the Rangers last year. Of course, the longtime coach has bounced around to a variety of teams, but he's always had a lot of success, especially early on, and last year was no different with the Rangers. He's going to be entering his second season with a real good handle on where the team's strengths are. Of course, GM Chris Drury, also in the same boat. Drury was hired not long before Gerard Gallant was. Obviously, this team kind of went through a bit of a teardown management-wise the year before that with some significant changes when they let go of Jeff Gorton and John Davidson and brought in Chris Drury, who was the assistant GM at the time, to take over the reins for this franchise. Of course, during the offseason, not too long ago, they also decided to name a captain. So defenseman Jacob Trouba, of course, signed long-term, a big part of the blue line with his big crushing hits. Now will wear the C here for the Rangers. Now let's also take a look at how the team has changed through the offseason. What moves have we seen here from Chris Drury to make adjustments to this lineup? Well, first let's take a look at some key additions. There's certainly more subtractions than additions based on how active this team was at the trade deadline. But as far as the additions go, they brought in Vinny Trocheck, of course, as the second-line center, free agent centerman from Carolina. Pretty good acquisition there. Some might feel they signed him to a little bit more of a longer-term deal than some would have liked, but it's the price to pay for free agency, and I think he will be a good fit there. They also brought in Ryan Carpenter, who can also be a bit of a depth centerman and could end up being like the 12th, 13th forward on this roster. As far as the key subtractions go, though, they actually ended up losing Ryan Strome and Andrew Kopp, both to free agency. I really thought one of them would stay. Ryan Strome, of course, played his best hockey with the Rangers. Has been there for quite some time. Good centerman for Artemi Panarin, so certainly interesting that they saw an opportunity with Trocheck to be a better fit in their opinion. Of course, they had Kopp at the deadline, had fit in real well there, played well, produced, but obviously got a more lucrative deal in Detroit. So it was interesting that they both moved on. I really thought one of them was going to end up staying. Frankie Vitrano, of course, it was picked up at the deadline. Played well, also moved on via free agency. Kevin Rooney is gone. They ended up trading Nils Lundqvist, who requested a trade after not really seeing an opportunity to be in this lineup with any kind of regularity. Of course, they also traded Alexander Georgiev to the Avalanche, who's been wanting more of an opportunity for some time and had really, I think it's been almost 2 years now since he's been kind of looking for a trade. He finally gets it. And Tyler Mott, another deadline acquisition, moves on via free agency signing in Ottawa. So they brought in a lot at the deadline, and to be honest, a lot of their deadline stuff really worked. Kopp, Petrano, and Mott were all really good key contributors at the end of the regular season and in the playoffs. It's unfortunate none of them were able to stay because they were all really big acquisitions that fit in extremely well. So lots of players are gone. Will they be the same team? Will they be as deep of a team? Well, of course, Chris Drury probably will, obviously, as we know, will be starting with a different roster. Maybe not quite as deep as they were in the playoffs, but an opportunity to add again later on to give themselves another chance. Now, do they have prospects who can make an impact on this lineup? And the answer is absolutely they do. With Vitaly Kravtsov coming back from Russia, he's expected to get an opportunity to play in the top 6 or top 9 right off the get-go of this season. We'll see how he does and if he can seize that opportunity and stay in that role. But I believe they're going to try to give him every opportunity to succeed and get in that lineup. Zach Jones is another defenseman who certainly will be fighting for playing time. Obviously, with Lundqvist being moved, it'll help his case a little bit as well for getting more opportunity. And of course, you might be able to see young players like Will Cooley or Brennan Hoffman. Maybe, I'm not sure where they're going to end up. They very well could finish out their season in junior here, but I'm not sure if they'll have an opportunity to make this lineup. But certainly a couple of young, exciting prospects to keep your eye on. If not this year, then next year and into the near future. Now, let's take a look at what we project this lineup to be for the New York Rangers going into the opening night. Well, based on training camp and what we've seen so far, it looks like your top line's likely going to be Mika Zibanejad with Chris Kreider and Sammy Blais. Of course, Blais might be a forgotten piece, of course, who was acquired from the Blues last year for Pavel Buchnevich, but unfortunately early last season suffered a serious injury and was done for the year. I would suspect your second line is going to be centered by Vinny Trocheck, along with Artemi Panarin and Vitaly Kravtsov. So that's likely going to be your top 6 based on comments from Gerard Gallant and what we've seen briefly here at training camp. That appears to be the plan to at least get started. The kid line should be reunited as your number 3 line, with Philip Hedl centering Kaapo Kakko and Alexis Lafreniere. And I would suspect your 4th line will be composed of Barclay Goodrow, Ryan Reeves, and Dryden Hunt, most likely in that last spot, or it could be Carpenter. Hard to say. One of those guys will make up the 12th and 13th spots here on the forward depth chart. On the blue line, you're likely going to get some pretty familiar combos, including Adam Fox with Ryan Lindgren. You'll then have Jacob Trouba with K-Andre Miller, and then your third pair will be Braden Schneider, and he'll either be paired with Jones or Libor Hayek. I'm not sure who's going to win that spot, but they are the most likely, in my opinion, to be on that third pair with Braden Schneider. Of course, your goaltending is Igor Shesterkin, one of the best goalies in the world right now, and backup Jaro Halak, who was also picked up as a key addition, which actually I forgot to mention earlier in the video. He was another free agent signing to come over to the New York Rangers to be as part of this backup role for Igor. Now, like I said, what are the Rangers going to be like this year? I suspect they're going to be a powerhouse again and be competing for the top of the Metropolitan Division. I suspect they'll be probably in the top 3 for sure. Most likely, wouldn't be shocked to see them in one of the top 2 spots. I have a feeling that the top division lead will be between the Rangers and the Hurricanes, is what I project right now. Of course, with the trade of Nils Lundqvist, they did pick up a first-round pick from Dallas, and I suspect that that's a play by GM Chris Drury to stockpile some assets for deadline acquisitions. Like I said, it's unfortunate that guys like Kopp and Vetrano and Mott, who all had real solid impacts on this roster and played well for them in the playoffs, couldn't return. But he's in a situation, Drury is, that he's got another first rounder and other draft currency and prospects that he can use as trade bait to bring in another, potential couple of guys at the deadline to do the same thing again this year. So obviously you have to be careful. You don't want to completely deplete the future, but at the same time, with a lot of these guys on longer term deals, and if some of these young players continue to hold down their roster spots, not everybody can play in that lineup anyway. So I do think that first round pick that he picked up for Lundqvist is very well going to be used as a key trade deadline piece to maybe get a guy like Patrick Kane even. Like, could that be something they target? They're rumored to be one of the teams that are interested in Kane if he'll move at the deadline. And of course, maybe reunite that old chemistry with Artemi Panarin. Can you imagine putting Kane on that second line instead of Kravtsov with Panarin? Of course, then you have options to either play Kraftstoff or Blais with Zibanejad and Kreider. You have it really would do a lot for your lineup. Patrick Kane would be a tremendous addition. Not to say for sure that's going to happen, but we know they're interested, and if it's not Kane, it's going to be somebody else. Like, they have that extra currency there to use to go out and get somebody. They have one of the best goalie tandems in the league. Their blue line is pretty solid. Like I said, the forward group, not quite as deep as what we saw in the playoffs, but still really darn good and still pretty comparable to what we've seen in the regular season last year. So once again, I do feel that the Rangers, like I said, will be near the top of the Metro. I do think when they get into the playoffs, they will be a force to be reckoned with. I would not be shocked to see them win a couple more rounds and be in contention for possibly either winning the East or being near the end of the final there and have a chance to compete for a Stanley Cup. I think their window just kind of opened up last year. It's still open for a while. When you have great goaltending like Igor Shesterkin especially, really everything else kind of falls into place, and to me that's like your foundational piece. He can steal games for them in the playoffs. He did it a lot last year, and really his play keeps up, this team will be right where I said it will be. If for any reason his play falters, they could certainly take a step back, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts on the Rangers for 22-23 down in the comments, and we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.